Sir,
Oh, I
read the
had over
literature.
1,000
I know
of
it's
them, but
boring
about
to me. I was a
8
tweaker when I
Well, I
came
mean,
in. I
over
couldn't
time
sleep
you've had, let's
a
just
couple
go with a
lines
nice
out of the
round
big
number.
book. I was sleeping
1,000?
like a baby. And find your groove.
That's
You know,
a really high
this
number.
can also be.
Yeah, probably
Okay.
about 300.
I
They
can't say
call it
that
a social
I tapped out
experiment.
on
You know,
my
you
10th
don't
sponsee,
have
and that's
to.
the guy who shot himself in the chest with a
I
shotgun,
mean, I'm a
and I
one day at a
decided
time
that
type of guy.
I've seen a little
so I
too
know
much
what's
in my
waiting for
lifetime.
me if I go pick up. Nothing
Yeah.
but
And there,
cops,
by the way,
misery,
for those of you going,
and
oh, that's selfish on
self-destruction.
your part.
And
No.
I don't
No,
want that
I've
in my
met
life.
people
Well,
who
it's
have had
not like
traumatic
it
events
was
happen with their
you know,
sponsees. It had
just,
nothing to do with me. I
Don't
get
drink, go to
that.
meetings, and come back
I'm
tomorrow.
just telling you that I have a
Absolutely.
problem getting attached with
And I will
individuals that I
speak
wanna
to
see
those with
succeed,
5+ years. And since this
and
is our first episode,
ultimately,
I'll
I
explain.
cannot handle
Ian's
the
probably got a different
responsibility of
number,
being
and we'll
somebody's
take
sponsor.
turns
Is that making
sending
me
out our
selfish?
future messages and our past
Probably.
message. My message
Does
is
it
for
make me
those who have
realistic?
5+ years,
A
because
lot.
I don't think you know
So,
shit until you
with
have
that
5
said,
years in the
you've
program.
had 300
And then at 5
or
years,
so
you wake up one
sponsors.
morning and you go,
What
oh,
do
now I get
this
it.
whole thing's about
It
fit,
might happen
right?
sooner
I mean,
for
that's
you,
ultimately
but it is
what
based on my
causes
opinion and what I have
everybody
seen
to
out of
do
people.
whatever it
Takes
is.
about
The reason
5
we
years.
drink
Fair
too
number?
much or do
Plus or minus
drugs is
5
because
years?
we are afraid of dealing with our own emotions. It is a fear of our own emotions,
It's
right?
probably 3 to 5, but I like rounding up to an easy
I
number.
would say
I-
3 to
not
5.
just
You
emotions,
know,
but
it depends
definitely
on the
fear.
person. I mean, I know
So,
we're not supposed to talk about
in
personalities,
general,
but
what are
you
the
know, there's
greatest,
a couple
what are the
moments of
great
clarity
fear
that I got early
drivers
on,
for
and I
people?
realized.
I mean, what is it
And
that people are most fearful
you know,
of?
I just
Because that seems to be an integral part
you know,
from my
my
perspective of doing
responsibilities
enforcement.
increased, and I
It
had
is
a
the
I had to
fear. What
really
is the fear?
really
What is
stay
the
sober for
driver?
that. And it's when,
You know,
for
what
me, it's
is
when
it?
life is
Do you
going
see
good, like
more
at 5 years, or
selfishness
6
or
years, 7
dishonesty
years.
or
That's when I get
economic
complacent.
insecurity
That's
or
when I feel like I don't need
anger?
a higher
Fear
power.
of acceptance,
I don't
fear of
need,
projection.
you know, to
So
talk
it's
to other
basically,
addicts or
so are you saying
alcoholics.
that most
I don't
alcoholics and
need
addicts
a
have mommy and
spiritual
daddy issues?
solution in my life.
Well,
so.
I'm asking.
And that's when I get in trouble.
Yeah.
And
So
I
you're
was,
saying that
you
from
know,
your
and
perspective of the
luckily
sponsees
I've
you've
been
had,
around enough to realize
they didn't
that
get enough
that's,
hugs in their life.
that's happening. And
No, some of them got too
Okay,
much.
fair
you know,
enough.
for me, pause is a great weapon.
Some
When
got
I,
too
when
many.
I,
So basically,
when
you're
I
saying
act
that
out, I try
there'd
and
be a lot
pause.
less alcoholics
Definitely
and
when I have
addiction in
cravings
this world
to drink or
if
use, I
people
pause.
actually raise their children correctly.
Because no matter what I'm feeling, good, bad, or
Forget
indifferent,
the
it's going to change. This
biological
too
and
shall
all the
pass.
other
Whether
bullshit
it's
that
good,
we
whether
can
it's bad.
do things
So
in
as
a
long as I can hold on to
Pavlovian
my
manner.
ass
I'm
long
not
enough
trying
that
to be a
that feeling
dick
goes
here.
Yes,
away,
I'm a believer
you know, I'm going to have a shot at making it a
that
productive
yes,
day.
there is a small percentage of
And
those that it's in our genes.
my problem is my two
but
biggest
I am a
fears are
firm
fear of
believer that
success and fear of
somewhere,
failure.
somehow, there was a
So,
traumatic
you
event
know,
that happened
when one's stronger than the other, I'm
early
going to
on
have
in
a
our
great
lives
day.
or in our
When
formative
the other
years
one's stronger, it's
that
not going to be that good.
in-
It'll probably be
instilled
fun, but it won't be that productive.
the traumatic
That somehow
fear
screams
that
oxymoron.
we would
Right, it does.
use
Well,
to the
that's why
point
how
of
I know
Okay.
I'm in the right place. Being in recovery.
And during the course
Well,
of
my
your time
message
with
today
these
is for
300
those that have
people
5+
and/or the
years.
100 fourth steps event.
It is not a message of
That's
hope.
a good
My
joke.
message of hope
That's
is
a
to the person who
really
has
good
one
joke.
day
I'll do the
listening to
math
this
again
for the first
everybody who
time.
missed the joke.
You
So had 300
who have one day,
sponsees,
you
and
are
of the
statistically
100
more
fourth
likely
steps
going to
you've
see
done,
5 years without drinking or using again. Those of you
you
listening
know
to the
what?
shows who have 5+ years,
You missed
you
the
are
joke
more
because
statistically
50,
likely
okay,
to drink
my point. Up to
before
50.
the other person.
How
The
many
newcomers
people
kind of have
actually
you.
find?
Well,
Was
you
that
know what?
dicky on my
It's
part?
about
I wanted to
100.
end on a
Some of
dicky
them have
note.
done a couple.
So
But
Yeah, it was
in
pretty
the
dicky.
individuals.
But you know,
Uh,
hey,
only-
if you and I can stay
you
sober,
know what? I
anybody
bet you it's
can.
no, I'm
150.
sure it isn't.
That is
I'm sure it isn't.
real proof,
I
and
bet-
we'll definitely get
I
into
bet
our
it's
stories
closer
because
to
next
30, 'cause,
tune in
I mean,
next
I
time
had a couple of NA guys
to step
that
one.
sent to a
we're
priest
gonna
that
go
was a
one
deaf
by one,
dude because they didn't
for
didn't
these
even
first
speak English or
13
couldn't read
episodes.
lips in English.
We will tell our stories and we
You know,
will
but they didn't
put them
know
into
that.
practical
I just
play.
sent them to that,
Just
but
so you
that-
know,
that church was no, but,
Ian
yeah,
is
I
a
mean, there's,
God-fearing AA
you know,
NACA
listen,
guy. I am.
God's on my
unfortunately,
side.
I've never
I'm an
met
atheist.
Anybody that died doing the
I
four
believe
steps,
you
but
can
I've
be
met,
either one and
I
still
know a
get
bunch of
sober.
people that died because
Absolutely.
I don't have to be to the agnostic.
And, you know, I
I'm
needed
telling
my
you
four
straight
steps
up,
because
if you
I
got
thought
no
my
belief
pride
in a
and ego
higher
were my
power,
greatest assets.
trust me, the other
And
steps
I
will kind of
found
work
out that
themselves
they
out
kept
for
me
you.
sick for a
You-
really long
Okay.
time.
Yeah.
We get
don't-
what I'll
This is
explain
gonna
it.
Go to my point.
I don't want to give away the punchline, but the
So,
punchline's this.
in those
If
30
you're going to be a
30
real
steps,
atheist, the secret,
4 steps
you've
that
got to
you've
be
done, and I'm saying this to
100% honest
everybody
in your
who's listening,
entire
in an
lifestyle.
interviewee
You
kind of format.
literally have to be honest all the
Here's my
time.
question.
You cannot, because you have nothing to fall back on. There's no higher power. No. If you really live the atheist lifestyle, those are the honest people in the room. If they're not, they're not being honest. You kind of have to be congruent to it. But I don't want to turn anybody off before we get there. I'm just saying, if you have issues with God, great, hang in there. We'll talk about
this
it.
The other day. Not only
everybody does,
sound really shitty on
to
my
some
part,
degree or another.
I'm so self-obsessed.
And now that one of the physicists has completely confirmed the fact that we are biological experiments in a petri dish, I'm trying to mentally wrap my brains around that one these days. Is that crazy conspiracy theory stuff?
Cognizant form of Asperger on some level.
Maybe.
Which
Maybe.
Is like the word Asperger.
But that's a physicist.
Right.
But yes, I'm somewhere on the scale
again,
because I don't have the
next week,
ability to
sign up here on Spreaker. It will be on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. It takes a couple of weeks for those to happen. But if you're listening to it off this link, click on the little button on your player and sign up so you'll have the show next week. We'll also make sure you guys have it in the feed. Send us an email.
Never mind.
At the word black,
no, I'm
the
taking
word
all
white,
natural right now.
the word recovery,
no,
3 words, black, white, recovery, at gmail.com, and we'll answer all of your questions. I would love to do a mailbag session. Next week, this time, next week, everybody.
And according to Drew,
okay, set your clocks to it. Step 1. So if you're waiting to do your step 1, I highly recommend you wait until you hear from us. I've done 3 or 4 different versions of the silly
closest friends.
Here's
a stat.
Everybody's got to spin on step 1.
Me? And the workbook, it's pretty intense.
4. Okay.
I'm glad
so
I got
like attracts like, right? My mom.
Yeah, mine was in the hospital, and it was so shocking to me to hear my life story that
my father,
even I was like, I had the out of body of, who the hell is this? This doesn't even sound real.
Weight gets better.
So we'll talk about it next week, and having your first out of body experience, sharing your stories. Hopefully that works for you. Again, black white recovery at Gmail. Send us an email. We'll read them on the air next week. Hopefully we hear from you. Certainly Ian would be more than happy to talk about whatever you send in, I'm sure. I personally don't care if you guys ever write in, which will probably ensure I get emails of people who hate me. I'm sure of it.
Hate mail?
So some of it is in the upper.
What I would say is write about it and tell your sponsor if you hate me after the first episode.
What we have now,
and I'm glad to know my egotistical self is glad to know that somewhere there's somebody writing about me and telling their sponsor.
For my daughter now.
Nice.
I
nice, right?
Nice, absolutely.
Tune in next week. We will be here, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for keeping me sober.
We would have called in the past attention deficit issues. They are easier to address now and easier to fix now, and education is far much better than it was, say, for you in the 60s, for me in the 70s, during those, I think we've lost touch with, and I'm saying this for everybody, some of it's not your fault. Whatever happened to you between the ages of 0 to 12 is pretty much where you got fucked up.
Exactly.
And some of it is not your fault. You don't have any control. You don't have control over Dad being a dirtbag.
Most of it is not your fault. Most of it has caused actions that are your fault.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. Like, once you knew full well what you were doing. But your moral compass is created from 0 to 12.
Yeah.
And you spend a whole lifetime trying to justify why the world is not fitting into that circle, whatever it is that you fit for yourself. It's probably why I'm more wired together than people that I know that still go to the meeting religiously and still cling to the concepts of the meeting and still preach and pontificate the greatness of AA. And it's my experience that when I do blah, 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 yeah, you cheat on your wife, asshole. That's what your experience teaches you. Okay?
Yeah, that's just not a good example.
No, it's not. But that's a common person. You and I both know it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm not married,
I get that,
so
but the fourth step being the way it is, if I do all of this work, right, and multiple times, I've done it multiple times, just like you have, and I'm able to come to grips with, wow, I really know what happened from 0 to 12. I know what happened when I worked for my dad from my teenage years to my adult years. I know where my anger comes from. I know where all this shit is. It's on me at some point to man up and go, the reason I don't listen, the reason I'm self-centered, the reason I'm any of those things is because I'm making a conscious choice to be that way. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Anybody can change. It's just a decision you make in the morning.
Well, it goes back.
But you have to identify what you want to change.
Did you ever read The 5 Love Languages? There's a great book for relationships. For those of you who are in relationships trying to keep your shit together while you get sober, break up now and get it over with.
Right, yeah. Yeah, there's too much
change happening. I can't even begin to tell you the number of nervous breakdowns I've actually seen based on this topic. But my advice would be to get the 5 love languages. Well, it's probably a little God-centric because that's the way this particular PhD is. He does bring up a great point about doing things for someone else. And relationships in general can be towards your kids. They can be towards anybody else. But he brings up a great point. I got into this in my relationships once. Like, well, I want you to do things because you want to do them. And he brings this up in the book, and maybe a great way to look at this from all the shit you've done during a 4-step. Look, nobody wants to get up and vacuum the floor. Nobody wants to make their bed. You have to get in the habit of doing it, and it will please others and please yourself. But you have to do things as a habit. At the end of the day, not drinking or using is a habit. And I don't think people actually appreciate that that's what it really is. It's not a conscious life choice.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
So what have we learned? What have we learned from the 4-step other than any woman in the program who has more than 1 year doesn't really know how to have sex anymore?
Just do it.
And by the way, am I right in my assessment? After a year or two, that crazy party animal know how to bang thing disappears? Really?
No.
You've met girls with time who still know how to vote do correctly.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to shake guys off of women.
Well, yeah, I mean, I go through phases. I'll go through a phase where I'll only date girls in the program because, girls that drink don't understand. And plus, girls that drink have that whole romantic sharing a bottle of wine in front of the fire bullshit, which I'm not going to partake in. So once that's out the door, that relationship is ending. And then sometimes I have a couple of nightmare program relationships, and I seek relationships outside the program.
Okay, so what did we assess today in 4-step? Have no relationships. You're going to break up with anybody you're currently with if you have less than a year. You need to find out whatever your schism was from age 0 to 12. That's important. I don't think anybody ever goes that far back when they do their 4th step the first time. To look at the childhood things. I can tell you safely, I know where it was. I know exactly where it was. I know in 7th grade when I wanted to die the first time. I know when it happened. I know where I was, where I didn't fit in, I didn't feel a part of. It was grade 7. I'm a 48-year-old person, and I can clearly tell you that I had the conscious decision that I wanted to die at that age. And now, as the father of a 12-year-old in the same position, I cannot even imagine her thinking that way.
Right.
What's more frightening to me is that nobody could see that on me. Nobody was checking in with me. And I don't know if they really need to. I guess you have to say something. I don't know. I don't know who's to blame for that.
Right. Either gotta ask for help, or you gotta figure it out for yourself.
Right. I get that.
There's two choices.
But if you can find that little bump in the road,
or try to bury it with drugs and alcohol for the next 20 years, and then figure it out.
That's the question that I'm most asked. How am I able to be a one-hit wonder? My answer was, I know that in grade 7, somewhere between grade 6 and grade 7, whatever occurred to me emotionally, whether or not I can unearth it or not, is the day I wanted to die. from that day forward, I never wanted that feeling again, and I did everything in my power to avoid feeling that way, where I needed to be gone. That just led me to drugs and alcohol. It was TV for a time. It was everything for a time.